In today's video, we're going to be taking a look here at the current conditions, and as always, we will be also diving into the very interesting upcoming pattern with multiple snowstorms and multiple Arctic blasts. So there is a lot to talk about, especially very cold and wintry conditions. I think we're full-blown winter pattern by this point. It's pretty evident. It is very cold across most of the eastern United States. We do see that there is a snow system, very minor, that is kind of impacting our northern Rockies here, so we can see this taking place. We can also see for the upper Midwest into the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes, there are snow showers and lake effect snowfall happening across the region. And then for the Great Lakes regions here, we are full blown lake effect monsters coming off of some of these lakes. I mean, we are seeing very heavy lake effect snowfall already taking place, and it's going to continue all the way through Sunday and potentially beyond as this cold air moves over the very warm waters that are still much warmer than the air there in the Great Lakes. That's why we usually see lake effect primarily in November and December as opposed to January, February, March. Usually it's a more early on winter thing because the water has to be warm for it to really take place like this. Now, let's zoom into a couple of different regions. And first things first, we'll take a look here out west real quickly. There is a bit of a ridge taking place, so we can see the jet stream is doing about like this. So everywhere here along the west is going to be a bit warmer than areas east. So there probably is some warmer air in there. Now, also, we can see some light to moderate snowfall showers happening from Idaho and Montana and a little bit of Washington there as well, all the way down through Wyoming, and then especially here as we take a look at Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas, and a little bit of southern Wyoming there. We do see some of these heavier snowfall showers and pretty persistent snowfall actually taking place for the Denver area, the Cheyenne area as well. And let's see if we can get some other areas. McCook, and then Colby, Kansas down there. We are seeing some heavier snowfall as well. Let's take a look further northwest or northeast here. Better yet, we do have some more sporadic snowfall showers for the upper Midwest. So this is going to be a little bit more spotty and off and on snowfall. It's very hard for snowfall like this to accumulate because it's so off and on. You need very persistent snowfall to accumulate, as we all know. As we take a look at the lakes, there's a couple of pockets here in the upper peninsula of Michigan with some potential lake effect snowfall, but it's definitely the lower peninsula here where we're seeing, I would say, the most persistent lake effect snowfall taking place, and it looks like it's potentially mixing in some spots. So if you are here, let us know in the comments if there is some rainfall mixing in, or if this is purely snow down here. Be sure to give us a location as well, because that does matter. But we can see the blues popping up all over the place, okay? We see blues within the whites, and that is going to be extremely heavy snowfall, whiteout conditions here for a lot of these areas. So Grand Rapids, we see Lansing as well, Big Rapids, St. Joseph. We see all of these areas seeing this very heavy snowfall, and it's making its way all the way here towards Flint and Detroit as well. We see some of these bands heading into these areas also. So this is just going to impact almost the entire state. We see the Cleveland area seeing some of this lake effect snowfall as well, all the way down through Youngstown there. So we're seeing this extend into portions of Pennsylvania as well. And then we see here near Erie, Pennsylvania, and in the New York side of things, we see very heavy lake effect snowfall occurring here as well. So we see plenty of heavy snowfall taking place for a lot of folks. As we work our way further northward towards the I-90 corridor here, and just north of that I-90 corridor, mostly to the north actually, we have a very heavy snowfall band, lake effect band of course, happening here, and this is leading towards extremely heavy snowfall. As you can see, the whites are widespread, and even a blue within the whites is very widespread as well. So clearly just extremely heavy snowfall taking place during this lake effect event, and this is leading towards some snow showers making their way all the way into New England as well. So you can't rule out snowfall showers anywhere in the Northeast here at this point. So definitely a very wintry day. Now, we do see that there is some precipitation down here for Texas as well, so some showers taking place for Texas and potentially Louisiana here as well, mostly light to moderate. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to move on and we're going to take a look at the upcoming pattern where there is a very interesting nor'easter snowstorm potentially on the horizon with this very deep Arctic air that looks to stay in place at least over the next 10 days and potentially beyond. All right, now as we kind of dive into our modeled guidance now, we're going to play things out. And as you can see, by the time we're reaching into tomorrow afternoon, we're still going to have this major trough across the majority of the United States here, forcing the cold air to really impact much of us. Now, if you woke up this morning and you went outside, you probably noticed it's extremely cold, and it's been that way, but it's even colder today. Tomorrow is going to be even a little bit colder. It's going to stay that way for multiple days, like I mentioned. And this model, particularly here, shows this continuing at least over the next 10 days and not really subsiding much whatsoever. We see the lakes fully taking on this very heavy snowfall all the way through into Friday into Saturday here. And then still, by the time we're reaching Saturday afternoon, the only difference we're going to have here is we're going to have a deeper trough in the eastern United States, and we're going to have a bit of a ridge building in the west here. And what this is called is a positive PNA. We've talked about this time and time again. So if you've ever watched this channel at all, you probably heard of this term. But this is some warm air. That's called a positive PNA when there's warmer air for the western North America regions here. And it forces all the cold air to go around that air mass, which means the eastern United States. So that's why that's such a big factor in our weather. We still see some storminess here for very similar regions across the south central United States, which is very, very interesting. This is Sunday morning. We're still seeing that lake effect snowfall fully going on here. We know that in Buffalo, New York, they're going to have a home game around, I think it's a 1 p.m. game. I'm hoping because I want to see snowfall during the game. I think that'd be very interesting. But Browns versus the Bills, or Browns at the Bills, better yet. And that's going to be a very, very interesting game. Feet of snowfall expected. I've seen a lot of people posting like 6 feet of snowfall expected, on Sunday during the Buffalo Bills game. It's not going to be 6 feet of snowfall on Sunday. It's going to be 6 feet of snowfall or however many feet of snowfall it is between Thursday and Sunday, which is a big, big difference, obviously, between it just being Sunday. And a 4-day period. So there will be a lot of that swept up, but you can expect it to be a very wintry game regardless. But there won't be, 4 to 6 feet of snowfall on the actual field when the game is played, obviously. I've seen that misconception being thrown around. That would be very interesting, but certainly not going to take place there. Now we see by the time we're reaching about Tuesday here, the trough lifts off a little bit. So we see a little bit of a flatter jet stream. It's still going to be rather cold. It's just not going to be quite as wintry. It'll probably warm up a few degrees, but nothing too major, I would say. We're still, by the time we're reaching Thursday, the 24th, this will be Thanksgiving, dealing with another trough moving in here for the eastern United States. So Thanksgiving could be a little bit colder here for a lot of these eastern regions, a little bit more warm for the west here, where we still have this positive PNA bringing impacts. Now, this is when one of my favorite types of snowstorms takes place here on this particular model, starting Friday, or better yet, starting Thursday, the 24th. That's Thanksgiving, like I mentioned, but also continuing on into Friday, the 25th. This starts out as a clipper system, a rather strong clipper system, actually. And this is bringing light to moderate snowfall for a lot of these areas. And we also have a bit of a system down here, is what I would call it. Not necessarily a strong low or anything, but we do have energy down here. And what we're going to see is the potential for these two to kind of combine. So we see this moves down into the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes, the upper Midwest. And we see this piece of energy kind of stretching out across the Gulf and the southeast. And we see this kind of all combine here as the low primarily is now trying to take place off of the East Coast. Again, we still have this very dramatic jet stream pattern, very strong positive PNA now taking place by this point, the 25th to 26th time frame. And we have snowfall for the mid-Atlantic taking place, Ohio Valley, northeast as well. This is called a Miller B nor'easter, and it usually starts out as a clipper like this and then moves off the East Coast and moves up just like a nor'easter would. But a typical nor'easter would move from the Gulf up into this region, but we see these Miller Bs come from inland and move about halfway up the coast. So that's the difference. And we see this low really develop pretty far offshore. If we were to get a low that develops a lot closer to the coast, this would be a much more interesting scenario here for the East Coast. Honestly, that would be very interesting to see. But for now, this model particularly, and this is very far out to take it with a grain of salt, but this model does show this low developing very far offshore. So it does innocently come to an end very quickly before it can even move off the east coast, or really bring impacts to the northeast coast, that is, because these areas really would need to watch out if that was closer to the coast, especially look at how deep the cold air is here. I mean, we have this ridge and then dramatic trough all the way down the eastern United States. I know it's only November 27th, but this is enough cold air to support a snowstorm for the East Coast, surely, as this is a very, very, very cold setup. And we'll take a look at that in a second. But first off, the total precipitation through the next 10 days. And as you can see, we have anywhere in the whites expecting practically no precipitation. Your grays, a tenth of an inch or less of precipitation. Your greens, a tenth of an inch to half an inch. Blues, half an inch to an inch. Your yellows, an inch to 2 inches. Reds, 2 to 5 inches. And then your browns, 5 to 10 inches of precipitation. We see some of that down there for Texas and Louisiana, as well as up there in Washington and Oregon. Now, total snowfall through the next 10 days would look something like this. We see that snowstorm brings anywhere from 2 to 6 inches of snowfall to potentially 6 to 10 across here. So this clipper that slides down would cause those types of impacts for those areas. If you're anywhere in the grays, we're expecting a dusting, if anything. Blues, 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. Purples, 6 to 10. Pinks, 10 to 20 there. Your pastel blues, 20 to 38 inches plus. And then your purplish pastels there are going to be about 38 inches or more of snowfall. Certainly a whole lot expected for the lakes. We can see those pastel blues really flaring up, especially off of Lake Erie, but also some of the other lakes as well. Buffalo looks to be right in the bullseye for the most snowfall, though, with that lake effect. Now, the temperature pattern. We see there's a lot of cold air, again, coast to coast. We've been talking about this for a couple of days, and really for weeks we were calling for this, and it certainly has taken place. As time rolls on, and by time certainly we're taking a look at Friday afternoon, we will see things will get even colder than they are currently. So tomorrow is looking even colder here. By time we're reaching Saturday, same story. Sunday is also going to be really, really frigid. So we're going to have a very cold weekend ahead for the eastern United States as a whole. Even Monday is looking cold, just not quite as cold. And then Tuesday is looking pretty mild. But the one thing I want you to note is look up to the north. That is our supercharged Arctic blast that is about to just make another appearance. So Arctic blast number 1 by Tuesday will be all said and done. But Arctic blast number 2 here is already on its way. And by the time we reach about Thursday, this will impact a lot of the north central and northeastern United States here. By Friday, it'll be impacting a lot of the East Coast in general. And it really swirls back by the time we're reaching Saturday the 26th. And it's bringing a lot of cold air for a lot of the eastern United States here. And this is right around when that snowstorm would be potentially happening. So Friday into Sunday here. I want to talk about exactly what those temperatures would look like real quickly. I usually don't do this, but let's take a look at the eastern United States. Just to talk about how cold things would potentially be. This is the high temperatures on Friday the 25th potentially. And as we can see, you're looking at mid to low 30s in a lot of these areas. That is cold enough to support snowfall. And even up and down your kind of northeast coast and mid-Atlantic coast, mid to low 30s as well. Your low temperatures being in the low 30s, okay, and upper 20s. So certainly around that nighttime, we would be able to support snowfall if that low was to track straight up the coast. But again, it forms way offshore and it's way back here. But that could definitely change. Or, there's enough time to where there might just not even be a storm at all. That's the tough thing about beyond, 5-7 days out. With snowstorms like this, it can all change. But the important thing is that we continue to track it, and we will on the channel. So be sure to subscribe. Be sure to hit that bell icon as well to get those daily notifications. We will be taking a look at all of these things for you guys. So rest assured, we will get to the bottom of if there will be a snowstorm next weekend, not this upcoming one, but next weekend. So be sure to tune in daily. Like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys in the next video.